Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And for today's episode we are looking at our first official slash unofficial Valiant comic. This is of course infamous Deathmate, a crossover between two of the biggest independent publishers at the time, Valiant Comics and Image. These issues came out in October of 93, so right at the peak of both companies. And I say infamous because Deathmate was supposed to be this huge, big deal in comics. You know, like I said, the two biggest independent publishers at the time. Image, was probably the biggest. Valiant wasn't too far behind, but the appeal of Valiant was that their stories were probably more, I want to say, mature. Not mature in a sense that they were more like, not more interesting or highly intelligent or anything like that. More serious, I would say. Right. In Image, Image was, all of, trying to pull that off, but they were still more driven by the art of the artists, right? And the storylines were just like basic, nothing too groundbreaking. So Valiant was the company if you wanted like interesting stories and okay, and and good artwork, and then you had Image with its big big name, big time superhero characters. So the thing about this crossover was that the issues were released not as numerically, but they were color coded so that you could read them in any order and the story would still be coherent, right? And the reason they did that, and I would say smartly, is because I think Image was, infamously known for being late with their books. So, and true to form, their issues were late, especially the black issue. That was like almost a year late. I mean, it was ridiculously late. Valiant, these two issues were put out by Valiant, and these came out on time. And then the red issue, which was handled by Extreme Studios, that came out like a few months later. And then the black issue, which was handled by Homage, that was the latest one. That was, like I said, came out almost a year later. So what was supposed to be the biggest crossover, ever, turned out to be the biggest disaster ever. Until Image United came out, and then that became the biggest disaster. But that's another story. So we're gonna do both of these issues today. Yeah, it doesn't matter which one we go first. So let's start with the blue one. And let's see. The thing also, like I mentioned, the thing about Valiant, they had competent artists, all of that, but they weren't, as flashy, like Image, and for their part, all of the art has like this. There, the way I call the way I look at Valiant artwork is like it has a watercolor wash over it. You know, the colors aren't as vibrant as, you know, even by this time. Um, even by this time, computer coloring, well, mostly that was mostly done by Image, but even things like the in a previous episode that we saw the, uh, the Action Comics, right? You can see that the colors were vibrant, and you can see here on this one how contrasting the colors look. You know, in the sense that it looks more washed out. So they were probably doing all of their coloring still by hand, and that's why it looks like it does. Right. So in this opening, so as far as the credits, so we have John Ostrander as the writer, Jim Calafiore as the penciler, and Mark Zazar colors. Oh, and Ralph Reese the inker. So Jim Calafiore, he kinda took over for those that collected Wizard magazine back in the day. You know, there was that how to draw column by Bart Sears, and I remember that when Bart would miss an issue, Jim Calafiore stood in and did some some columns for the how to draw, and then he kind of took over for a while, and then it then just became like an assortment of artists doing the column. But he became like the main guy for a few, like maybe 6 months or so. I'm trying to remember exactly. So Calafiore is a good established artist. Then I mean, obviously here in '93, when I said this came out, October of '93, he was still like an up and comer. I'm guessing. I mean, before this time, I never remember hearing his name, right? So it was probably just maybe a couple of years in comics by this time. I think he studied at Kubert School, if I recall correctly. And so yeah, he's a pretty solid artist. Again, he tries to implement a lot of the Image style stuff in his art, but here you can see it's pretty much the way, because I flipped over the issue before starting recording. His art reminds me here a little like the old school DC George Perez, John Byrne-esque style of art, you know, where he gives his characters, heroic proportions, but at the same time, it's a little, kind of wonky. This doesn't look like his both feet are planted correctly on the ground. This foot right here almost looks like it's like this. Right? This is the floor, and it's like this. So again, that's why I think maybe he was just maybe a year or so in comics. I don't know. And again, these proportions just look a little weird. Again, it's part of the Image look, because again, the Image artist did that. The little tiny feet. But for his style, it looks weird, right? It doesn't look like it goes with it. But good, decent storytelling all around, right? There's, nothing too crazy. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the coloring was done with watercolors. Yeah. So don't even ask what's going on with the story, because one, I don't remember, and second, it was pretty dumb overall. The entire, I probably couldn't even tell you exactly what the whole Deathmate crossover was about. You know, I think Solar and Void from Wildcats hook up, and that causes like a rift, and basically that's it. So yeah, this is a pretty cool shot, from the ground level, from the worm's eye. It's proportions can get a little wonky. Again, it's almost like not a fisheye, but that forced perspective style. The forced perspective angle kind of throws off the proportions a little. But this is it's pretty solid, good drawing, good coloring here, nice effect. Again, I wasn't. Well, I guess this was Magnus, right? They said so right here. So this is supposed to be Magnus Robot Fighter, and this is Battlestone from Brigade. Yeah. So they're getting it on. Oh, there you go, Magnus. It's over, Magnus. So yeah, it's again pretty decent art all around. Smashing the bike over the guy's back. It's almost like a chair shot in wrestling, but he felt nothing, so he no-sailed it. Meanwhile, this guy, I don't know who this is. I have trained you, but I didn't teach you everything I know. Then kill me because I won't give up. And they continue to beat the shit out of each other. And then that rift or whatever was coming down on them. They didn't care as long as they kill one another. It reminds me of and it's funny because we saw Star Wars in the previous episode, so this kind of reminds me of in like episode 6 when Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting in the Mustafar and the river of lava. It's like, I don't care where we're fighting, I'm gonna kill you if it's the last thing I do, right? So even though at any moment they could slip up and fall into the lava, they don't care as long as they kill each other, right? So it's kind of like the same scenario. And then is this turns out to be like the Necromancer? He looks familiar. I mean, again, familiar in the sense that from ads and everything, kind of looks familiar. I'm not exactly sure who the character is. I think Harada is from Hard Corps. But yeah, so this ends one part of the issue, right? And then we skip over to another part, this with secret weapons and Cyberforce. So this is Joe St. Pierre writer, Sean Chen penciler, Catherine Bollinger inker, and again Sean Chen. Pretty sure that again this was like his first, big time, working for a big company. He was working with Valiant. That's where he got his start, pretty sure. And if you look at his artwork now compared to this, it's like two completely different artists. There is not even like a subtle evolution from his from what his art current art looks like right now to this. Again, this is pretty much like the house style that Valiant was going for, which again we go back to Calafiore, you know, very classic 80s DC, you know, 70s 80s DC style, you know, look. Even to an extent the Marvel, considering that Bob Harris founded Valiant Comics. I No, not Bob Harris. What's his name? Jim Shooter. Jim Shooter was the founder of Valiant, but by this time he was out. He had left, and Bob Layton took over as the main guy. So again, it's funny that they're going with this kind of look for their art, considering Jim Shooter came from Marvel, Bob Layton came from Marvel, I think. So, but their style is more what I associate with DC from the like the 80s. Again, typical, like the when I think of this, I think of George Perez, you know. Yeah, you know, Geomancer. What did I say? Necromancer earlier, right? Geomancer. That's what I wanted to say. And again, Sean Chen does a good job here. It's very constrained to the panel grid, and that's my dog barking. I don't know what's going on outside. Hopefully it shuts up. Let me pause it for a bit. Oh, no need to. If it starts barking, I'm gonna pause. So yeah, it went to the front. Maybe you don't hear it. So anyway, Sean Chen will later go on to do, like, I believe he hit it big with another independent company, CrossGen. I'm trying to remember what was the book that he did there. And then he went over to Marvel and really hit it big with Young Justice. But then his art style had evolved almost to like a more subdued version of Travis Charest a little bit, and I think his style right now is taking a little more cartoonier look. You check out his Instagram. Compare this to what is on his Instagram, and you're gonna see how much his art has changed. But again, you can see that it's the art is almost begging for it to be a little more exciting visually, because again, the maybe again it's the constraints of the artist itself at the time was not, or mandate by editorial from Valiant editorial, you know, not to go there. But you can see that the guy, both of them, you know, Calafiore as well, you know, they're competent artists at what they do, and for this crossover, it almost begged for it to be more visually striking. But again, probably just the way that they looked at, you know, they wanted to differentiate themselves from Image, you know. It's not all about the artwork, it's about the story. This is a cool shot. I think I've seen this, well, I mean, probably copied hundreds and thousands of times, right? Different pose, I mean. So, but it looks cool. And this looks cool. when they hit, pretty solid. And then this guy, I guess this is Sting from Hard Corpse. Bloodshot. Bloodshot comes up in, I believe he comes up in the image part of the crossover. And here we have, let's see, Harbinger, Brigade, and Cyberforce. Maurice Fontenot, writer. Howard Simpson, penciler. Gonzalo Mayo, inker. And this, I don't recognize Howard Simpson's name. I don't know what else he did in comics after this, but I don't know if he stayed for how long with Valiant. But again, it's consistent with the house style that they wanted to present to their audience. I do want to say though that they, from the few issues that I had from Valiant, they were kind of bloody. They knew how to take it there when they had to. But I'm looking at this, and again, it's, I don't want to say this in like a rude manner or anything, but they're kind of like interchangeable, Califiore and Chen at this point. They all have the same look, right? None is, they all share the same style, right? This one, this looks almost even more what's going on like in DC at the time, like more of a, this kind of reminds me like a Dan Jurgens style, and it's okay, it's not bad, but it's not, what a lot of readers were into at the time. From the artistic standpoint, they wanted that the image flash, right? The flashy in your face, art style. That's why, for the most part, the let me take a drink of water. That's why, for the most part, the Valiant stuff didn't appeal to me. Now that I'm looking at it, this is Ninjak, right? So about the only time that they appealed to me was when Joe Quesada was doing Ninjak, because Quesada came from that sort of mentality of the coming from I'm blanking out, from Marvel, for X-Force, and then he jumped to Valiant and do Ninjak. Or was it, I'm trying to remember his timeline. I'm trying to remember if he did sort of Azrael for DC and then jumped to Marvel and then jumped to Valiant. I know Valiant was the last thing he did before starting what was it, Ash, his series, but I'm trying to remember, Event Comics. So yeah, that was about the only time that I paid attention to anything by Valiant. Maybe if I was older at this time, older meaning if I started reading comics like in the 80s, late 70s, in the 80s, so if I were like in my 30s at this time, Valiant would have appealed to me more. But I got into comics in the early 90s, so Here you can see this is the cover by Quesada for the special 3D issue that came out of Solar. And Quesada does draw an issue of Deathmate, but that's in the long box, so we're not gonna see that here. So but yeah, the you can see how more visually striking, you know, just compare these two, right? And you can see why the appeal of Quesada drew me in. And here we have, let's see, Kevin Van Hook writer, Peter Grow penciler, and Jimmy Palmiotti was the inker. So of course we know that Palmiotti was almost the exclusive inker for Quesada for the longest time. They were like the new Jim Lee Scott Williams pairing, right? They stayed together for a long time until eventually I don't know what made the team separate. Actually, Quesada then got started inked by Danny Miki, and Palmiotti, I think he jumped ship to DC, where he hooked up with Amanda Conner, both figuratively and literally. But again, I'm not that familiar with Peter Grow, the artist, on this part of this segment. But it's you know, pretty standard. Again, I don't want to say that in a mean way. You know, standard for what was standard for the standard that Valiant had. You know, I guess he's trying to be a little more image-esque in the sense of how he's doing the art. You know, more extreme shots. You know, not so subdued, but you can see that his skills are a little more not as advanced as like Calafiore or Chen, right? So you see a lot of minimal background work on this art, right? So, and again, they are in like an open mountainous field, so not a lot to draw as far as backgrounds, but even then, a lot of open backgrounds, you know. Well, I mean, he fills it up here, but let's see. Is this the Necromancer? Master Dark. Okay. So yeah, you know, it's I'm sure that they did what they could with their end of the storyline and whatnot, but in reality, you know, Deathmate was just like another failure. From here, they go into Deathmate epilogue. So this is where Quesada did some art. I just want to look up something real quick. Sean Chen. Maybe I'm confusing, guys. This is Bernard Chang. Maybe I'm confusing Sean Chen with Bernard Chang. I think I am, because like I said, I was mentioning that Sean Chen went on to do the cross gen stuff, and then, you know, Young Justice and all of that for for not Young Justice, Young Avengers for Marvel. I think I'm thinking of Bernard Chang, because his, now that I'm looking at this is what I'm remembering more from that. So maybe, I'm pretty sure I was confusing the guys. So sorry. And here we go, Ninjak. So yeah, here we have Deathmate Blue. We're at half an hour, so the limit for this on my camera phone is 34 minutes. So we're gonna stop it here, and we're gonna go into part 2 and look at Deathmate Yellow. So I'll see you in the next one right after this.